All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. So can you guys see my screen? All right, so today we're going to be talking about home purchase. So we're going to be having a good communication about what the process looks like to buy a house, what you should be doing to prepare, how we can run some numbers, and all that mess. So any questions before we jump in? Nope. All right, cool. So here we do. We're over halfway, right? So this is meeting number 7, I believe, of the fellowship. So this is home purchase. We will be meeting again in 2 weeks on September 28th. I believe we're going to be talking about taxes, unless somebody can argue with me why not to. After that, I think we're going to do insurance. And beyond that, we're going to see whatever people want to recommend. So if somebody has an option that they'd like to have after taxes or insurance, please let me know. I do believe our final session will be on November 23rd. And so that's right before Thanksgiving. And that'll be a conversation to talk about a wrap up, conclusion. You guys can give me your thoughts. You can say, man, this dude sucks. I really wish we would have done that. And just help us through this process. So hopefully we'll be able to help us in more than I've been able to help you. So any questions about the schedule? No questions about the schedule. All right, so we're gonna dive right in. So home purchase. So we're gonna talk about types of loans. We're gonna briefly touch on private mortgage insurance. We're gonna talk about the home purchase process. We're gonna talk about closing costs, and we're gonna talk about some recommendations. So a whole bunch of stuff. First things first, kind of the questions to be asking yourself prior to this. So whenever you're talking about a topic, this is what we would normally ask our clients prior to a meeting. So this is what you should be asking yourself a little bit. Kind of, hey, what big financial concerns do I have right now? If you're focused more on something else, then maybe that takes precedent over home purchase. So if we're focused on paying back student loans, if we're focused on paying back other debt, if we're focused on doing X, Y, and Z, let that take its precedent that it should have. What's the approximate timeline for your purchase, right? So for some of you, it could be, hey, we're going to purchase this year. For some of you, it's, hey, we're going to purchase next year. For some of you, it's like, I would love to purchase a home at some point in my life after student loans are gone, if they're ever gone. How long do you plan on staying in the home? That's going to help decide what kind of home we're going to get, right? If we are 25 years old and we're going to stay in a house for 2 years, it can be very small, or a condo. If we're going to stay in the house for the rest of our lives, we're going to make sure we have room to grow. We're going to make sure we have room for the dog or the cat or the llama. People have llamas. What approximate target purchase price? So what are you expecting to spend? You may have no idea. You may jump on Zillow and get super scared. You're like, whoa, that's 3 pharmacy degrees. Or whoa, these houses are super cheap. That's half a pharmacy degree, depending on where you went to school. How much do you anticipate you'll have for a down payment, right? So industry standard, people will talk about a number like 20%. You should have 20% prepared. Other loan types, which we'll talk about, you could have less than that. Other loan types, you could have more than that, depending on what the home is used for. So just get these ideas in set. Are you actively saving for this purchase? Basically, are you working towards this goal right now? Do you have a real estate agent? Do you know where you're going to secure your financing? Would you like help? I'll give you some examples at the end. And then how confident are you? Overconfidence is a problem. Underconfidence is a problem as well. So is anybody currently looking at buying a home in the next year? Brittany, Chris, cool. I'm assuming somebody who doesn't have their video on. So you guys specifically, I use guys, sorry, Brittany. Y'all, if you have any specific questions, please feel free to interrupt me. I'd like to help you through this process as much as possible. So if anything is important to you, or if I glaze over something that's actually impacting you right now, we can stop and talk. Everybody here knows I don't mind a tangent now and then. Okay, Allison, do I have a viewing crew tonight? Is it just you?
My boyfriend's here too. There he is. There he is. And
Okay,
then
cool.
my dog.
That's fair. Okay, cool. All right, so Susie Orman. Susie Orman is a voice out there in the financial industry. I love a lot of things she says. I hate a lot of things she says, but some of it is really good. So, it's easy to underestimate the real cost of homeownership. And that's something we want to make sure that we're not taking for granted. When we're talking about a home purchase, we want to make sure that we actually understand what that's going to entail. All right. Voices from our clients. You know, I want to own a home. I don't want a home to own us. It's a really common sentiment, a really common phrase that you're going to hear out there. And we want to make sure, right? House poor is a thing. I have friends that bought too big of a house too young, and that's all that they can afford. So they can't do anything else. They can't afford to go on trips because they have a huge fat mortgage. They can't leave their job because they're stuck. They're tied to this house. So we want to make sure the house doesn't own us. So let's talk about some different types of loans. So we'll talk about conventional loans, government-backed, creative, jumbo loans. All right, so a conventional loan. This is also called a conforming loan or conforming mortgage, right? So these are loans that are not guaranteed or backed by any federal organization. They're not backed by the VA, the FHA, or the USDA. You generally need really good credit, really good defined by the lender themselves, but something like 740 and above would be ideal. Realistically, anything over 680 or 700 should be okay. And you're probably going to need a large down payment. So that's going to be dependent on the loan servicer themselves. But a large down payment could be anywhere from 10 to 20%. If it's for a rental property, you may need more than that, maybe 25 or 30%, depending on it. So these are the most common loans that are out there. So everybody's got these. And then there's government-backed loans, right? So these are things that the federal organizations actually guarantee them. So they don't give you the loans, they guarantee it to the lender. Okay, so that can be the FHA, which is the Federal Housing Administration. So these are loans that are backed by them. The borrower has to buy insurance against them. That's PMI. We'll talk about that in a minute. It stands for private mortgage insurance. It allows a buyer who would not generally qualify for a conventional loan to qualify, right? So instead of having 20% down, maybe you only need 3.5% down. Maybe your credit was a little hurt. So the US government's going to guarantee your loan to the lender to promote that American dream of homeownership. The size of the loan is limited, so they won't let you buy too much house. And there's special loans if you need to do any maintenance. So let's say you buy a house that needs renovations and you're going to use an FHA loan. You could do what's called a 203K loan. This is not important to remember, just know that these things exist. A 203K loan would allow you to wrap in any kind of renovation costs into the loan. So example, I buy a house for $200,000, which may sound really high or really low depending on where you live. And it needs low, yeah. And it needs $30,000 of renovations. I may be able to get a mortgage that is up to $230,000 to allow me to do those renovations right away. All right, then there's the VA, so Veteran Affairs. If anybody in your purchasing team, whether it's you, your significant other, or whoever your partner is in this process, has access to VA loans, meaning they are a veteran, either active duty, reserve, retired, or disabled, then they can get those. Those are generally going to have competitive rates, so really good rates. Little or no money down is an option, but there is what's called a funding fee. So a funding fee is a non-reimbursable fee you pay to get the loan. I used a VA loan to purchase my first house, so it was a 2.15% funding fee. So I bought a house for $200,000 on the dot, and I had to pay 2.15% above that. So when I got my mortgage, because I did 0% down, I actually got a mortgage for $204.30. Does that make sense? All right. Anybody using a VA loan? Brittany, Chris, mostly you two, or whoever else. Brittany is going to use a VA loan. Okay, cool. So, so funding fees, you don't need to do a funding fee if you have any disability over 10%. So if you or your significant other has a disability over 10%, they may waive the funding fee. There is no mortgage insurance, so there is no PMI for VA loans, no matter the minimum. There is a credit score limit, so it's generally like 620 or better. They have loan limits, so it's all dependent on your area. The national average right now, I want to say, is like 500,000, but in county specific, it will change. With these types of loans, you don't go to a special lender to get a government-backed loan. Most lenders can do these. They just have a special type of loan provided by those lenders. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Any questions on the VA, Brittany? Or anyone else? All right, and then USDA, so that is the US Department of Agriculture. So if you live in a rural area and you're buying a house, USDA can do it for you. So those are also, you can get eligible for 0 down payments. There's limits on what you can do. If you're ever buying a house in a rural area, just talk to your lenders about what loan options are available to you. All right, creative loans. Creative loans are going to be lender specific. So you may have heard of things like doctor loans. Those are really common, meaning if you're a doctor, a company will loan you more money or for less interest or for less down payment. And that may be because they see you as less of a risk, right? You are all medical professionals, so you all have a shit ton of debt. You're really good at paying back debt, so they're like, let's give them some more. I'll talk to you about a company at the end that actually does a PharmD loan. So it's a loan specific to those who have PharmD degrees, and they basically just trust you better. So they give you special terms than they would give the average Joe down the street. Any questions? Oh, and jumbo loans. Jumbo loans are exactly what they sound like. So they're big. So this would generally be anything over $500,000. It may require more down payment. It may require PMI. It may require other things. Not every organization will loan out that big of a dollar figure. So it's just special. That is obviously going to be specific to the area, right? A $500,000 house in Phoenix, Arizona, where I live, is a pretty big ass house. A $500,000 house in San Francisco or San Jose, where I used to live, is not a house, that's garage. So congratulations living in a garage. So it's very dependent on where you live on what these loans are going to look like. So always talk to somebody who knows your area specifically. Any questions so far? Chris, I cannot hear you. You're off of mute. I just can't hear you. I appreciate the.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So would a jumbo loan still come from a bank traditionally, or is it usually a private loaner, I guess, lender?
Yeah, you can get it from a bank. So when we'll talk about, let me talk about that specifically in a minute, but yeah, different organizations can still do those types of loans. It's not like a special jumbo only place.
Okay.
Solid question though. Anyone else got a question for me right now before I move on? Nope. All right, interest rates. So interest rates are really important. You'll hear a lot about interest rates in the news. What's the interest rates right now? What are they tied to? What is this? What is that? So interest rates are at historic lows right now. It doesn't mean anything. They could go up tomorrow. They could go down further. We're seeing ranges from clients anywhere from 3% all the way down to, I've heard, as low as 1.75%. That's going to depend on That's going to depend on the type of loan, the length of the loan, the specific lender, the specific credit, the specific home, everything. It's all going to factor in there. Really recently, we're hearing a lot of things in the 2.5 to 2.8% range on 30-year fixed. So interest rates, what do I mean by that? Fixed interest versus adjustable interest, right? So just like your student loans, federal student loans have a fixed rate. When you refinance, you could go fixed or adjustable. So that's the same thing. I see, do you have a question? Nope. Okay, I'm just going to mute you then. You can have a fixed interest or an adjustable rate interest on your student loans, just like with the home. So fixed is what it sounds like. It is flat, it is steady, it is consistent over the life of the loan. Generally, mortgages are written in 30-year terms. So it would be a fixed interest rate and a fixed payment for those 30 years. You can also get loans 20 years, 25 years, 24 years if you want to get somebody to write it that way, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever you want to get. All right, adjustable rate mortgages, just like they sound, the rates are adjustable. So with an adjustable rate, they're generally going to be sequenced like this. It's going to say, oh, this is a 5-1 ARM, a 7-1 ARM, a 10-2 ARM. What that means is the first number is how long the loan is fixed, and the second number is how frequently it can change after that. Example, a 5-1 adjustable rate mortgage would be a fixed interest rate for the first 5 years, and then an adjustable rate every year after that. Does that make sense? All right, so you know what your payment's gonna be and you know what your interest rate's gonna be for the first 5 years, and then every year after that, it could change. In the loan, it will say how it can change. Thus, it could say, follow the 10-year treasury note plus 2%, no dropping, right? So then every year after that, they'll look at the treasury notes, they'll compare it plus or minus, and then they'll add their new adjustable rate. Does that make sense now? All right. Generally speaking, if you're going to stay in a home long-term, it's better to have a fixed interest rate because you want to know what your payment's going to be in the future so you can plan accordingly. There can be an argument to get an adjustable rate mortgage, especially if you're only going to be in the home for a short period of time. You can get a better interest rate with an adjustable rate mortgage often, but you have to be prepared for that adjustable rate to end. So let's say you're going to be in a home for, you're going to be there for no longer than 5 years. 5 years, something's going to happen, you're going to leave. A fixed rate mortgage is going to be flat for that whole time. A 7/1 or 10/1 adjustable rate mortgage will also be flat for that same 5 years. So that can be a way that you can do it. But if you're going to keep the house longer term, again, fixed rate just leads to consistency and ease of planning. Any questions about interest rates? All right, the lender's going to choose your interest rate based on all those criteria. So everybody's going to be a little different. Each lender is going to give you a different rate. It's not like they're all going to be identical, but they should be in the ballpark. All right, PMI. Does anybody know about PMI or private mortgage insurance? PMI is the devil, okay? So PMI is the lender, the person lending you the money, the bank, requiring you to buy insurance that protects them if you don't pay your bills, okay? So it protects the lender in case you default. Now they're giving you a ton of money, so it makes sense that they should want protection. If they give you $300,000 for a house and you stop paying your bills, they now have to take ownership of your home and sell it, and they'll probably sell it at a loss because you didn't do it right. So they want you to buy insurance. So this is an extra payment that you can pay at the beginning of a mortgage. You can pay it monthly. You can pay it all later. Each lender will talk to you separately, but this is just hundreds of dollars that you're going to waste every month to go towards this. So how do you avoid PMI? You can avoid PMI by getting a loan that doesn't have PMI. You could avoid it by getting having enough equity that you're not required to carry PMI, right? So VA loans don't carry PMI at all. So VA loans, no PMI. Farm D loans that we'll talk about in a little bit, no PMI. There are some other types of loans out there that do not have PMI. If you have 20% down, there's no PMI. There are certain lenders that only require a lower limit to remove PMI. There are also loans that keep PMI longer. So FHA loans, if you get an FHA loan and you have to have PMI, the PMI stays on it for the life of the loan unless you change it. All right, so let's say I get a conventional loan. I put 10% down because that's what my lender allowed me to do. They required private mortgage insurance. I didn't want it, but it still made sense for my finances, so I went with the private mortgage insurance. Once I pay down enough or my house appreciates enough that I do have 20% equity, I can get that PMI removed from a conventional loan. Does that make sense? Because now there's enough equity in the home, meaning difference between debt and value. There's enough equity in the home that if the bank had to take ownership, they could still make a profit. That's what they care about. That's what 20% is for. So once there's 20%, I can remove the PMI. With an FHA loan, you can never remove the PMI. So the only way out of that would be to refinance to a new type of loan. So just something to be aware of. Does that all make sense? All right. Breaking down the cost of PMI, your lender will speak with you specifically. So if they have to include PMI, your lender is going to have numbers that'll show what it would cost. So this is kind of a fool's errand. 83%. That is the percent of non-homeowners who cite student loans as the factor delaying them from buying a home, right? A lot of people are going to say, I can't get a house because I have student debt. And that's not an incorrect statement, but student loans are not going to hold you up if that's the problem, okay? So what are the factors that lenders care about when you have these things, right? So lenders are going to care about your credit history, your credit score, and your debt to income ratios, which we'll talk about a little further in a minute. So your credit history you can control, your credit score you can control, and the debt to income is really just that monthly outlay. So they're not going to say, oh, man, Rebecca has $200,000 of student loans. She's not going to get this house. They're going to say, okay, what's Rebecca's monthly student loan payment relative to her monthly income? And that's how they're going to calculate that. So if your monthly student loan payment is in control compared to your debt to income ratio, then you can still qualify for a home. If you do not currently have a monthly student loan payment because you're either in a grace period, a 0%, $0 thing we're in right now, administrative forbearance, or your income driven plan is just so low that it's zero, which is going to be common for a lot of you, then what they'll do is the lender will have their own specific rules that will generally fall into either 1% or 2% of your loan balance. So they'll say, okay, we're going to calculate as if 1%, or we're going to calculate as if 2%. Some of them are 0.5%. Each lender is going to have their own parameters for how they treat student loans. Does that make sense? Any questions on that specifically? Okay. All right, so let's talk about the home purchase process. It's super simple, no problem, anybody can do it. So here's my 11 steps, and we'll dig into these deeper. But effectively, you determine your budget, find an agent, choose a lender, search for a home, write an offer, home inspection, complete a mortgage application, appraisal, underwriting, loan approval, mortgage settlement, and move in. Super simple. All right, cool, let's break it down. All right, so the first thing we'll do is determine your budget. You're gonna talk to a bunch of real estate professionals. They're gonna help you through this process, and they're gonna tell you what you can afford. It is much better to you to decide what you can afford before they tell you what you can afford. Real estate professionals are gonna be compensated specifically on the purchase or sale of the home. So it is in their best interest to sell you the largest home possible because they're gonna make a percentage of that. Does that make sense? So they can do math and say, oh, you can afford a $4,000 mortgage. And you're gonna say, fuck you, I can afford a $4,000 mortgage. I can afford like $2,000 maximum or $1,200 maximum, depending on your area. So the first thing we're gonna do is figure out your budget. So how do we do that? Determine your household take-home pay after taxes. So to figure out what's actually coming in, or when I'm ready to purchase, what will be coming in. Make a list of your household recurring expenses. Basically, what am I paying out every month? Make a list of all added expenses. These are new expenses that are going to come during this purchase, right? That's like, oh, I'm moving into a house, I have to pay for snow removal. Oh, I'm moving into this house, there's a homeowners association fee I have to pay. Oh, I'm moving into this house and it's going to have no parking, so I need to pay for parking down the street. Oh, I'm going to be farther from work, I have to pay for commute. That's going to be a new expense I didn't receive, right? And then make a list of all subtracted expenses. Like, oh, I used to pay for parking, but now I have a garage. Hey, I used to pay for this, but now I live in a condo that has everything and I don't have to worry about it. I can cancel my gym membership, right? So let's figure those numbers out. Determine what you have left over after expenses to spend on housing, and then determine how much of that leftover you want to spend on the house, okay? We're gonna go through a little exercise here in a minute. So a couple rules of thumb. Mortgage is no more than 25% of your take-home pay, and the purchase price is no more than 2 to 2.5 times your gross income. All right. So those are just some general rules of thumb. I don't want to pay more than 25% of my take-home pay on a mortgage if I can avoid it, right? If you live in New York or San Francisco right now, I know people that are spending more than half of their pay on housing, but it's not ideal. So if we can do it, we want to be less than 25%. And then a purchase price, you don't want to buy a house that's too big. So a safe rule of thumb is 2 to 2.5 times. Is that always going to work out? No. That's just how my thumbs work. So you can use yours. So let's jump in here. Can you guys see my screen still? All right. So this is the home purchase worksheet. So you should all see this if you go into Mighty Networks, and it should be on the page. So if anybody can't find this or if I didn't see it, let me know. So how does this work? So basically, we fill out where we're at. Does anybody want to be an example? Chris or Brittany, do you guys want to be an example? I got 2 maybes. First one to unmute. All right, Brittany.
Sure, why not?
All right, Brittany, where are we purchasing?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. All right, so we are in Minnesota. Don't get mad at me because I don't know my places. What's the county there?
Hennepin.
Say that again.
Oh, actually, let's do Ramsey County.
Ramsey County?
Yeah.
All right, so what we're doing right here with that search is we're just using internet data to say, what's my median home value? What's my median property tax payment? So I can calculate what my effective property tax would be. I just need this number for later, but this is also revealing. Again, this is median, not average. So this may not be what you're going to be paying in that area, but this is for that county specifically. Does that sound right?
Yeah, some big houses over there.
Right, so we'll see what we look at. All right. So what are we going to be making when your residency is over, or what are you making now? Whichever one you want to do.
I have a job, and we're a 3-income household, which is really nice. So we'll probably be somewhere. Yeah, right. That's really nice. And one of us is a veteran, not me, but so I'm like around 130. He's probably around like 65, and then one other person's probably around like 50.
Who's going to be on the mortgage?
Well, we're still trying to figure that out. Let's say me, since I have the largest income.
If it's just you, then we can only use your calculation. So it's the mortgage company is only going to use whoever's actually on the mortgage for it. Example, when I was starting my business before YFP, we bought this house that we're living in. It's hard when you're a solopreneur to do that. So my wife bought this house alone. So none of my income was included in the purchase, and they couldn't count me. So they count all the expenses, but they don't count any of the income. So whoever's actually going to go on the mortgage is who we care about. In this example, you have this, you can play with it later, but let's just do, want to do just you for now?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so you said you're at 130?
Yeah.
Congratulations. All right, so that means we're about 1088 gross on a monthly basis. Your take-home pay will probably be something around this, 720. So I did an example earlier of 125. So probably right around that take-home pay. Does that look right?
Yeah.
Okay. Monthly debt payments. What debt payments are we making?
Right now, none.
None. What about when student loans start? Are you on an income-driven plan?
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't remember.
That's okay. I'm gonna put $1,000 in here.
Perfect.
All right. And then do you know your current monthly expenses?
It's so hard because I don't usually do just me.
So this one we can play with, right? So for your particular example, they're not going to care about this number. This number is for us. Okay. So because you're a 3-income household, that changes things a little bit, right? So your monthly outlay for expenses is probably pretty low if you're saying a third. So give me that real number.
Let's see. Probably spend about $300 on food a month. We like to shop at Whole Foods. Let's say
I could spend $300 on fast food in a month, man. You're good.
1,200.
$1,200. All right. And then any kind of new expenses we may be picking up throughout this process.
We'll probably end up. Well, a lot of the houses in Minneapolis, St. Paul have like really small kitchens, and we cook a lot. So we'll probably end up doing like a kitchen reno.
Ooh, okay. That's not a monthly expense. That's a big purchase. That's
okay.
$20,000 or $30,000 expense later, but
okay, that makes sense.
Expenses would be things you pick up like HOAs, yard maintenance, parking fees, and things like that. Does anything come to mind?
There's no parking. HOA probably is going to be 400 or so, probably.
Okay.
Snow?
Snow removal?
Oh yeah, snow removal. Good God.
I don't know what that costs. I have in Phoenix.
Good for you. That's good. Snow removal actually is kind of ridiculous here because there's so much of it. Let's say 100 a month for that.
All right, so let's call it $500 in new expenses. Are there any expenses you're going to get rid of? Any expenses now that you wouldn't have if you had a house?
Rent?
No, not rent.
Okay.
That's
about it then.
So let's say no, we're not going to save anything, okay? So this right here says basically, hey, we have $130,000 coming in that we can prove on the mortgage, which is your income. We have monthly gross of $10,800. After taxes and deferrals, we have $7,200. Monthly debt payments of about $1,000 coming out. Living expenses about $1,200. New expenses for the house about $500. We're not saving any money by moving. So we have $4,500 left over, just math, right? All right, my rule of thumb would say I want my mortgage payment to be no more than 25% of my take-home pay. So $1,800. So okay, cool. $1,800 sounds fine. Let's see what we can do with that. All right. Now we have these down here. So we have take-home pay rule of thumb we had, and then there's these two calculations called your debt-to-income ratios. So there's a front-end debt-to-income ratio and there's a back-end debt-to-income ratio. This is what the mortgage companies are going to care about when they're calculating if you can afford the loan. So front end is going to be PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's going to be your mortgage payment. So principal, interest, taxes, and insurance divided by your gross income. And most lenders are going to want that number to be less than 28%. So in this calculation, we set a mortgage of $1,800 with all this math, 16.6%. So we're totally in the green. Right? If we said this was going to be like $5,000, all this would shit red. Okay, so you guys can play with this later. So $1,800, so we were good there. And then the back end ratio. So the back end ratio is that same PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, plus any debt payments you're making. So student loan payments, auto loan payments, credit card debt, anything you got, any debt payments you're making on top of PITI divided by gross income. And most lenders are going to want this under 36%. There are lenders that will allow these numbers to be higher, but we're going to stay on these more conservative numbers because we don't want to be house poor. Okay. So I want this whole page to be green. And then we have our calculations here of, okay, home purchase rule of thumb, no more than 2 to 2.5 times of gross income. So 130 gives me 325. I'm shooting for 320, right? I'm just shooting a guess right here. What are you actually shooting for?
That's so hard because there's 3 of us. But what we just looked at was 465.
465. Okay. Now that wouldn't be a mortgage. That's the price of the home, right?
Right.
And what are you gonna do for down payment?
We were talking about like 20%.
Oh, so full 20%? Nice. Okay.
One of them, not me, has generational wealth. Not me though.
That's totally fair. So that would be $93,000 down.
Yeah.
So that would be actually only need a loan of 375, basically. Okay. So, and then down here for you guys to play around with, this is just like some help you in your search process of what are the must-haves that I need, what are the nice-to-haves. So for me, I fill these out. Hey, I need a big yard because I have dogs. Hey, I need an attached garage because outside sucks. Hey, I need to be close to work. I work from home, but my wife doesn't all the time. Hey, I need to live in a single-family home. Like I don't want to live in like condos or duplexes anymore. And I need to be in a safe neighborhood because I like to walk around at night. Nice-to-haves. It'd be cool to be close to a public park, near biking, running paths. I want to use it as an investment property in the future, maybe. I want to have a walk-in closet, and I'd like to be in a newer construction. We put like a list of things in here you can play around with if you want to. This is useful to like give to your real estate agent in the future and say, hey, this is some of the things that I want. All right, so now we're going to calculate. So hey, if I was going to get a target mortgage price of 375, right? So that was a 465 minus 20% down. That would mean my mortgage payment for this area would be roughly 2341. Okay, so 2341. If I wanted to stick to that 1800, I could only afford a mortgage of 288. All right, so 23 is what we got. So let's actually go back here and say, what if we did this was 2350? My rule of thumb is bad, but my other numbers are okay. They don't care about the rule of thumb. They only care about these debt to income ratios. So as long as that debt to income ratio is good, they should be happy. As long as you're comfortable with this number, and because we're basing this off of only one income when there's actually 3 incomes, this number is make-believe as well. So it sounds like everything is on the up and up. Knowing very little about you, this should be a fine purchase to proceed. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, let's go back in here. Any questions about that worksheet? Nope. Okay, that worksheet is in Mighty Networks. If anybody doesn't have access to Mighty Networks, put a link in, put a chat in there for Kim, and she'll make sure you have access. If you don't already have access, you definitely should, because that's also where we store all the videos and the slide decks for these things. All right, so next thing you want to do, you found out your budget, you know what you want to spend on a home. Now you got to find a real estate agent. Okay, so what is a real estate agent? What do they do? How do you find one? So a real estate agent is a licensed professional that has been through the real estate purchase process several times. You have probably never been through it before, so you want somebody who on your team who's experienced and educated, right? So they're there on your behalf, right? So they have to work at your best interest. They get compensated based on the purchase price. If you are buying a home, you do not directly pay your agent. They are paid through the seller's proceeds. But since you are paying the seller, you are indirectly paying their fee. Does that make sense? Industry standard right now is a total real estate agent commission of 6%, 3% going to the seller, 3% going to the buyer. That is negotiable. So that is something that could be lowered. You would probably not negotiate it as a buyer, but the seller can negotiate on their end. Does that make sense? All right. So an agent, again, they should be working at your best interest, meaning they are your proxy. They don't work for both sides all the time. They rarely work for both sides of an agreement. So they should be going there trying to get you the best deal and you the best home. They should research properties based on the parameters that you give them. They should make appointments for you to go see the homes. They should do the direct negotiation with the seller's agent. It's a very transactional business, so they should be explaining any conflicts of interest that they have. And then some states require what's called a buyer agent agreement. So a buyer agent agreement is effectively just a document that says, hey, I'm only working with you, my one agent. The agents don't want to waste their time by showing you 30 houses and then you buy a house with another agent. So they just want to make sure you're working with just them. You can break one of these agreements. You just tell them, I don't want to work with you anymore. I want to work with somebody else. And then you do that, right? Does that make sense? All right. So like, how do you find an agent, right? So first thing, if you're in your local area, just ask your friends and family for referrals, right? Say, hey, I saw you bought a house recently. Did you like your agent? Can I work with them? Are they great? Do they suck? Interview a couple agents, right? Find out what they work, how they work, how often they show houses, do the things, do they communicate the way you want? Do you only want to work via text message? Do you want them to call you every day? Do you want them to email you back within the hour? Do you want to be able to see houses at weird times? Can they only show you houses at Tuesday at 11? Like that's not going to work in your schedule because you're a fucking pharmacist and that's like busy hours. So like what's going on here? Make sure they're very upfront with your expectations. Tell them what you want. If they can't do it, then work with somebody else. There are thousands of agents in every city, so you're totally fine finding a new one. At the end of this presentation, I'll actually show you a referral source that we can use. Another pharmacist that his whole kind of side hustle is to connect you with agents in your local area. So great thing at the end. Any questions about that so far? Nope. All right, so you found an agent, you like how they work, you're gonna do well together. Okay, then you choose a lender, right? So where are you gonna get this money from? So you have your down payment, you know you got that ready to go, but the rest of the money you gotta figure it out. So you're gonna work with either a lender or a broker. A lender works for a bank. They can sell you their bank's products. A broker is more like a middleman. So they can sell you products from other banks and other lenders. Does that make sense? Kind of like if you go straight to Progressive for auto insurance, they can't sell you, they generally will not sell you products from like Nationwide. But if you go to an insurance broker, they can sell you products from everybody. All right. So choosing one of those is up to your preference. If you have a bank you like to work with their lender. If you have a broker you like to work with, which I like to work with my broker, I work with them. It's cool. Just compare them. Interview 2 or 3. Make sure that they're going to communicate the way you want. They're going to do the process the way you want. They can do the types of loans you want to use. They can do the type of financing you want to do. They can do all these things. They're going to vet you. Make sure you vet them. All right. How do you find one? Okay. Well, you can go to your bank that you already work with. That's fine. You can ask friends and family for referrals just like before. You can ask the agent that you just found. If your agent is a superstar, they probably know superstar lenders. That's just how that works. People who are good at their job know other people who are good at their jobs. That's just how it is. So if you have a good agent, they should have a good lender. If you have a bad agent, they may still have a good lender. So ask around who they got. I met my lender through a bad agent, but they're great. So going from there, interview a couple, make sure, again, they're doing the stuff that you want. All right, factors that affect how a lender is going to allow you to borrow. Again, credit history. So what does your credit history look like? Credit score. What does your score look like? They're going to have their own level for what's approvable, what's not approvable. Hey, you have over a 700, you're good to go. Or hey, you have over 750, you get our best rate. Oh, you have below 680, we don't allow you to do anything. You're going to need a cosigner. You're going to need another borrower. You're going to need to go somewhere else. And then that debt to income ratios, they're going to have their own rules for what they require for those numbers, okay? The process, you're going to have to get pre-approved or pre-qualified. So pre-qualified is like that stuff you get in the mail that says, hey, you're pre-qualified to refinance student loans that you receive like every other week. I haven't got them recently, so I don't know if they stopped sending them right now, but they were sending them like every week. So pre-qualified is just a very simple math where they say, hey, this is how much you make, this is how much you owe, self-reported. Yeah, we'll qualify you for a loan. That's not good enough. You're gonna need to get pre-approved. Pre-approved is where you go to a lender, you choose one, they actually vet you, and they say, yes, you could actually probably qualify for this loan. You are pre-approved for this loan. You're gonna need that pre-approval prior to selecting a home to put an offering on, because they're gonna want that pre-approval letter as a form of proof that you could actually buy the home. Why would they accept an offer from somebody that can't prove they can actually buy it? Does that make sense? All right, so you get a pre-approval based on the value of the home you're looking to purchase. If you know you're going to buy a $465,000 house and you know you're going to be able to put $90,000 down, then cool, let's go get a loan pre-approved for $375,000. I don't want to put in a pre-approval letter that says I'm pre-approved for $500,000 when I'm only offering $400,000 on a house. That's not the best negotiating tactics. They may not care, they may not see it, but I can see it and I would care. So let's go from there. Does that make sense? All right. Any questions about finding a lender? No. Okay, at the end of this, I'll recommend a lender that does Farm-D loans. Okay, cool. So now you know how much you want to spend, you have your agent, you have your lender, now we can search for homes, okay? So you've never looked at Zillow before this, which is not how this ever works. Anybody who starts looking for a home, the very first thing they do is they look on Zillow. They jump on whatever website or they find an open house down the street and they're like, ooh, that's nice. So that's how that works. So in reality, this is when we want to get serious about looking at a home, okay? So we're gonna map out our priorities. Right? Is this a home or is this an investment property? Your home is not an investment. Your home is your home. A home can be an investment, but they do not mean the same thing. So differentiate that in your mind. Do you want a house, a condo, a townhome, a duplex, a triplex, an apartment complex? What do you want to live in, right? Because that's going to narrow your search down. What kind of neighborhood do I want to be in? Do I want to be in the city? Do I want to be in the suburbs? Do I need a yard? Do I care about taxes? Do I care about schools? Do I care about parking? Do I care about leaving room to grow, right? Your home purchase does not have to be your forever home, but you need to understand that in the process, especially if there's multiple people buying a home. If people have unmatched expectations on a home, that's going to be an issue that you should solve at the beginning rather than halfway through the process. All right, so now we want to come up with a list of homes to view, okay? So your agent, they're shit hot. They're going to help you out. They're going to give you access to what's called the multiple listing system, or the MLS. Okay. The MLS is like real Zillow. So Zillow is mostly up to date and it's pretty accurate now. But you could find a house on Zillow that's sold already. You can find a house on Zillow that says sold that's actually available. So the MLS has more up to date and accurate data. So your agent's going to build a Zillow spreadsheet. Basically, they're going to put all the same parameters you would put in on Zillow. They're going to map it out. Maybe they're going to have wonky little polygons all over the place. And they're going to ship you a list of houses that's going to update. Whenever a new house comes in, you'll get an email, if you choose that route, that updates your list and says, hey, a new house became available in this neighborhood. It fits your criteria. Do you want to see it? All right, so your agent gave you that list. You can still search Zillow. You can still search Redfin, Trulia, Realtor.com, all that stuff. You can still go to open houses. Your agent may tell you not to go to open houses without them, but you can totally go. I go to open houses all the time. All right. I will say that if you're going to look at new builds, meaning a neighborhood that is being built, if you go to an open house without them, without your agent, then your agent can't help you later because there's like some like verbal contract that happens that is it's a weird thing. Tell your agent if you're going to go look at an open house for a new build, and they'll tell you if you can go by yourself or not, or they'll just join you. Right. Don't look at homes outside your budget, except once, okay? At the beginning of the process, it makes sense to look at a home that is below your budget to remind you why you're in your budget. Because if you like the home that's below your budget, lower your budget, right? Just do that, just live less. And then looking at least one home, realistically just one home, right above your budget to let you know what you should be looking for in a home. Right? If that one right above your budget has better countertops and you find a house that's in your budget that has some of those same features, then you're getting a better deal, right? Or if that house right above your budget has stuff that there's never, I don't need a sauna in my house, which is a thing apparently, then cool. I don't need that in my budget. This explains why I'm in my budget. We want to make sure that our physical budget makes sense with our actual understanding of what that's going to buy us. So we want to be one up and down. We don't want to consistently look at houses above our budget because you are emotionally going to get attached to some of those features and you're going to convince yourself that you can change your budget when you can't because you already figured it out. Math and emotion are not the same and they shouldn't be connected. Does that make sense? All right. So then we start doing home viewings, right? So now we're going to go to our agent and we're going to say, hey, I want to see this house, this house, this house, this house. I want to see them all today. And they'll go and they'll schedule the showings, right? People may live in those homes, so you may not be able to go today. Those homes may be empty, so you can totally go right now. There's tools like opendoor.com where people sell houses online and you can just let yourself in with Bluetooth on your phone. Like that's available. It's super cool, actually, Allison. Like you should check it out. Opendoor.com. When you go, bring an extra set of eyes. Even if you're buying a house alone, take somebody with you to be an asshole and point out the flaws in a home. You may find a house and be like, oh my God, look at these curved doorways. I love the character. This foyer is amazing. But they'll be like, did you notice that there's a hole in the ceiling? Did you notice that the cable jack is like in the other room? There's nothing in the living room. Did you realize that there's no overhead lighting? Which is a super common thing here in Arizona. And I don't understand it. Why? I don't want lamps. I don't like lamps. Lamps take up space on the floor. They shouldn't be there. So take somebody with you to be an asshole. Take notes. If you're going to view a bunch of houses throughout this process, you're going to lose track. Okay? Take pictures, take notes. If you're cool like me, build a little spreadsheet out. You can check things off. Ask questions if you can. If the seller's agent or the seller themselves is there. Hey, why are you selling? Why are they selling? What does the tax situation look like? Yeah, I can look that up, but you can also tell me. What's a standard utility bill look like? If you've only lived in apartments and you're about to move into a 2,300 square foot house, that utility bill is going to be different. And you want to just get an idea of what that's going to look like. What's the parking situation look like? Maybe you're viewing this house 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. The parking situation is going to be very different once everybody gets home from work. So understand what the parking situation looks like. What are the school systems in the area? Maybe they have actual recommendations for schools. You don't care about schools if you don't have kids, but you either are going to have kids in this house later, or the person who buys this house from you may have kids. So school systems still matter, even if you're not going to use them. And then the HOA, asking about an HOA. Is there one? You should know that already. It's going to be on the MLS portal. Is the HOA a bitch, right? Are they going to come yell at you because your tree is hanging too low? Because mine does all the time. Or are they super chill and they throw parties and everybody's nice and I'm actually the HOA president and we're great and we have a full budget and da 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 da. Ask those questions if you can. Again, snap pictures, bring a tape measure. If you have large furniture, is it gonna fit, right? That's important whether you're purchasing or just moving. If you have a 11-foot long couch, is that gonna fit in this space or is it gonna bump into the counter? If your bed gonna fit in between the windowsill, right? Or is your bed gonna sit awkwardly in between these two windows and out of balance and really mess with your eyes for the whole time you live there? No experience there. Look for the location of outlets, right? Are there outlets where your lampshades are gonna be? Are there outlets where you're gonna plug things in? Is your computer desk gonna work over here or is there no plug and you're gonna have to run an extension cord across the room? Is the cable outlet for the TV on the weird wall under the kitchen sink for some reason when you know the TV should go on this side of the house? Look at the plumbing stuff, right? How's the plumbing look? How's the HVAC look? You're gonna get all that inspection done. I'm gonna touch on it in a minute, but you can look at it a little bit and say, man, this AC looks 40 years old. I don't think that's gonna work. Appliances, the bathroom, does the bathroom fit your standards, right? The whole house could be great, but if the bathroom only has a clawfoot tub and you're not into that, that's gonna suck. Or if you really want a clawfoot tub and it only has a stand-up shower with a rolly door, that's gonna suck. So really understand what you're looking for. Pay attention to outside noise, right? Can you hear a street nearby? Are there loud dogs? I got a tip from a client recently that says you should, if there's a gate, you should shake the gate really hard. So then if there's any neighbors that their dogs like to bark, you can hear it right away. I never thought of doing that, but it's totally something I'm gonna do from now on. So pay attention to outside noise, really important. Walk through the home more than once. If you like a home, go look at it again if you can before an offer. And if you can look at it again, try to look at it at a different time of day. So again, if you saw it at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, try to go look at it at night after hours, after work, right? So people get home. Are there kids playing in the street or is it a desert wasteland? You know, are there a bunch of cars now that weren't there before and it's totally going to impact your ability to drive? That's going to change things, right? Is there more walking traffic than you want? Is there not enough walking traffic? And I even recommend if you really like a house to swing by in the middle of the night. Not in a creepy way, just like I want to know the real world way. Like swing by at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. And is there like strangers just stumbling around the neighborhood? That's important. Or is it a nice quiet neighborhood. Who knows? Does it reflect the environment that you want to live in the future? And you won't see that at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, right? You're going to live in this house outside the hours that you viewed it that one time. So we want to at least get a glimpse of some of the other ones. Talk to the neighbors. I talk to strangers for a living, so it's not a big deal for me to talk to neighbors, but not everybody wants to do that. If you can, do it. And then again, different conditions. So daylight, nighttime, when it rains, maybe there's a leak you can see if you have like basements and stuff. And then after you're done with viewing a home, after you're done viewing the house, you want to make sure you take those notes, right? So write the pros and cons of each house, look up on Google Maps and see what the bird's eye view looks like. How close are you actually to that park? Sex offender registry is something you can look up. Police violent crimes websites you can look up. These are things to think about, but not everybody will. And then try to remove emotion, but it is going to impact your decision because you're going to enjoy your home, hopefully. So you want to make sure that it actually gives you the thing. Okay, so now you find a home and you're going to write an offer. Okay, so you're going to write an offer on the house and you're going to say, I want to buy your house. Now, if you're buying right now, no matter where you're at right now, housing markets are really fast. Not sure why that's happening in all reality, but it is. So houses are selling extremely quickly. So when you're writing an offer, your agent's going to help you through this process, but it's more than just the price. Everything's included in this. So, hey, we got to figure out what our price is. So the agent should do comps or comparables. They should look at other houses that are similar to this one in a similar area. And this is what they sold for. This is what this should sell for. That makes sense. Now the seller's agent should have done that same thing to come up with a price. So hopefully you're in the same ballpark. If they're asking 400 and it's worth 500, then you should buy that house right now. If they're asking 500, it's worth 400, it's never going to sell. So eventually the market will work itself out. In that offer letter, you're also going to write your terms, right? So, okay, cool. This is the kind of loan that I'm going to use. This is the type of down payment I'm going to use. This is the closing times that I want to have. A deposit. In some areas, they may encourage a good faith deposit, also called an earnest money. And that's basically a portion of your down payment that you include in the offer to show how serious you are about this home. Okay. Your real estate agent's gonna know if that's appropriate in your area or not. In my area, the first time we bought a house in Phoenix, didn't do it, didn't know it was a thing. Second time we bought a house in Phoenix, they were like, yeah, let's include 2% of the purchase price. So, okay, cool, here's $4,000. This shows how serious I am. If they accept the offer, that $4,000 goes towards my down payment. If they don't take my offer, I get my money back, right? It's not a gift. Again, that's going to be up to your location and your agent's preference. How much of a down payment am I doing? Hey, I'm doing 20% down or I'm doing 3% down, right? That's going to decide. That's your lender's going to help you figure that out. Closing costs. We'll talk closing costs at the end of this, but closing costs is going to be really important as well because it's an additional expense above and beyond the price of the home. And let me touch on those later, but this could be thousands of dollars. Personal property. Is there anything in the home I want them to leave? Hey, I want to make sure you leave the appliances. Hey, I want to make sure you leave this really cool couch. Hey, when we bought this house, we kept the fire pit in the backyard. So they had a fire pit that was in the backyard. It was movable. I like it. Please leave the fire pit. If it's a big expense, they may change the price because of it. If it's something they don't want to move anyway, then they'll be like, totally, keep it. Wasn't going to take that with me anyway. It's a piece of junk. And you're done for wanting it. Closing date. When do you want to actually take ownership of the home? Your lender is going to give you a range of what's appropriate dates. It's probably going to be somewhere between 30 and 60 days. Could be anywhere in there, but you're going to write that in the offer to say, hey, I want to close on this date or in this amount of days. And that's important because if they're trying to sell their house and move into another house, it has to match. Or if they really just want to sell it as soon as possible, they may take a little less money to sell it a little bit earlier. Does that make sense? All right. And then other contingencies. Hey, I want to make sure this gets inspected first. And we'll talk about home inspection next. Hey, I'll only buy this home if I get approved for the loan. Hey, I'll buy this home, but I kind of want to move in sooner than that. So let me move in for a month and rent it from you while we're still finishing the purchase. Hey, I'm going to let you stay for a month. So let me finish the purchase. You can rent it from me for a month before you move out because you're not ready yet. Hey, I'll buy this house, but only if the HOA documents are pristine. Hey, I'll buy this house, but you got to tell me everything that's wrong with it. And they should include that all anyway, like somebody died here or the foundation is cracked, right? Some things that they know that are wrong with the house, they have to tell you about it. Sometimes if you're buying a house, you're also selling a previous house. So, hey, I will buy this house, but only if my previous house sells. You put that contingency in there. The more contingencies you have in a contract, the less likely they're going to take it, right? If they have multiple offers and one has a whole bunch of contingencies and one doesn't, they're going to take the easier offer. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you're the only offer in town, so you're good to go. Does that all make sense? All right. And then how do you determine this stuff? Your agent helps you. They've been through this process in this area multiple times. They should know the ins and the outs. They may know the other agent. They may have a relationship with them, all that stuff, okay? They're also going to do all of the negotiations. So you're going to write up this formal document, okay? It's never going to be you sitting down with the seller or you sitting down with the other agent. It's going to be a document that you type up or DocuSign and send over. They will review it and counteroffer you and say, no, we do not accept your offer. We want you to do $5,000 more than that. Or yes, your offer is phenomenal, we'll take it. And they'll back and forth that. Your agent will be pivotal in all this because they'll tell you what's appropriate to ask for and what's not appropriate to ask for. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So you put in an offer, it gets accepted. Congratulations, you are under contract for a house. You haven't bought a house yet, but you're under contract. So now it is your house unless you decide not to. Okay, so we're gonna go through a bunch of things. We're gonna do a home inspection. So a home inspection is where an inspector comes out to look at the home. You look at the house, but you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You never bought a house before. So you want a professional to come out and say, yeah, this house is not terrible. So how do you find an inspector? So look, your agent probably knows an inspector, okay? You can look up online, you can find a service, but your agent works with the inspectors all the time, so they probably have somebody they want to work with. That inspector is gonna come out and is gonna look at the roof and say, yeah, it's not caving in or it needs repairs. They're gonna look at the exterior of the home. They're gonna look at the heating and the air conditioning. They're gonna look at the insulation. They're gonna look at the structure, electrical, plumbing, the interior of the house. They're gonna test appliances that are gonna stay. They're not gonna get everything, but they're gonna look at a lot of stuff, okay? They're gonna basically tell you, is this house a lemon? Meaning, is this house ready to fall down? Or is this house just has normal wear and tear, okay? This is a long process. It's gonna take 2, 3, maybe 4 hours. You should try to be there if you can. The inspector's gonna walk around the house, they're gonna check it all out. They can tell you as they're going, if they let you get in their way. If you're not there, or even if you are, they're gonna give you a big PDF document at the end of this that tells you all the things they checked out, what it looks like, what remediations could be done to repair, replace, or fix, and then move on, okay? You will use that inspection report to renegotiate the purchase price. So you use that inspection report to renegotiate the purchase price, meaning, hey, the AC is about to break, man. I know I said I'd buy this house, but that AC's got to go. I want you to decrease the purchase value of the home by $5,000. Or I want you to replace it. And the seller could say, you know what? Yeah, no problem. I knew the AC was bad. I'll take $5,000 off the price. Or they'll say, nope, not going to do that. And then you have an option. You can either A, walk away from the deal. Be like, hey, if you're not going to replace the AC, I'm going to pull out of this contract and get all my money back. Or you could say, you know what? Okay, cool. I'll still buy the house. So when we bought this house, there was a bunch of offers. We got accepted. We did the inspection. The inspection says, hey, all the windows need to be replaced. The AC needs to be replaced. The roof has cracks in it. And I was like, hey, get all this stuff fixed. And the seller was like, no. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll still buy it though. Thanks. So then we get it replaced on our own. So find out what's important to you. Work with your agent. Work with contractors. People can fix stuff. What's important to you? Are you still getting a fair deal? Don't put yourself in financial hardship just because you don't want to negotiate or you have a fear of going back to the market, okay? Walking away from a house is a good thing if it's appropriate. There are always more houses. This is not the last perfect house. I also guarantee you, as soon as you buy a house, a better house is going to come on the market for less. That's just how it works, okay? So just know that there's always fish in the sea or houses in the neighborhood. Any questions on that? Cool. Have a home inspector. You can waive it, don't do it. Okay, so now you have to complete the mortgage application. So you're probably like, hey, I thought we did that with the pre-approval. Psych, no, that was just a pre-approval. Now we have to get like a real approval. So your lender and your realtor are gonna get together, they're gonna talk, and they're gonna figure out a bunch of stuff. They're gonna give you an entire tree's worth of paper to sign. Hopefully in your state it's DocuSign. In my state it's not. So we did a refinance last week, and it was all paper. It was like this much paper. So they give you like a whole tree. If it's physical, they'll also give you a second tree's worth of paper because you get your own copies. So keep those copies. You'll order the title work. The title work is where they decide, does the person selling the house actually own the house? And do they have other loans that you need to know about? They'll order a termite inspection at this point in time, and you can also shop for homeowners insurance at this time, okay? So this is where the lender is actually gonna go through all your stuff. They're gonna look at pay stubs, taxes, they're gonna talk to your employer, all these things to make sure, okay, this person really does qualify for this loan. All right, cool. And then we're gonna do the appraisal. So now the lender says, all right, you're good for this loan. We wanna make sure the house is good for this loan. We're not gonna give you $400,000 to buy a house that's only worth $100,000. So they're gonna come out and do an appraisal. The appraisal is gonna be a professional home appraiser, and all they do is look at homes and they compare values. They're gonna do the same comps that your agent did earlier, and they should come out with the same number. So it shouldn't be a problem. But what if it is, okay? What if appraisal comes in higher than your offer price? Cool, congratulations, you did great. Okay, cool. What if it comes in at your offer price? Cool, congratulations, you did great. All right, cool. So what if the appraisal comes in lower than your value? Okay, now you have a couple options. The lender is basically saying, I am not gonna give you that much money for this house. It's not worth this much. So you figure it out. So what are your options? You can A, walk away from the deal and go find another house. You can B, go back to the seller and say, I want you to decrease your price based on this appraisal. And the seller will say yes or no, or I'll meet you halfway. If you can't get them to lower their price, then your third option is to just add more down payment to make up the difference. Let's say I was buying a house for $465,000. I needed a loan for $375,000. The lender would not match that value. So I was $10,000 less. Seller doesn't want to renegotiate. I can just include $10,000 more in a down payment if I have it. Not always the best choice, not always the worst choice. Whatever plan works for you is the one that works. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Underwriting. All right, cool. So we got pre-approved. We did our mortgage application. We're done, right? Psych, no. We need another underwriter to come in and validate what that other person did. So they're going to go through all these documents again. They're going to do some back and forth. They're going to ask for something weird, like, hey, I need the back cover of your passport from when you were a baby or something. They need all these documents. The underwriter is going to make the final decision on actually get this loan. All right. So you've been in closing for 60 days. You're at the right very end. The loan finally gets approved. You know all the numbers, all the rates, all the expenses. Everything's in there. You've only been to the house 3 times, right? You viewed it twice at the beginning. You went once during the inspection. It's been 30 days since the last time you were there. Now you get to do your final walkthrough. So when you looked at the house originally, someone's stuff was probably there. Someone was probably living there, all right? You did the inspection. They were probably still living there, or at the very least they were moving out. You haven't seen the house in 30 days. You're about to take ownership. You do your final walkthrough. You get to walk through the home and make sure everything is what you thought it was going to be. They left all the appliances they were supposed to leave. There's not a hole in the floor where the couch used to be. We bought a 3-story condo as my first place, and it looked like someone had thrown a bed down the stairs. Like they tried to move a bed one person and just scraped the whole wall up. And I was like, nah, I did not pay for a house where the wall looked like that. I'm not going to take ownership if you don't get the wall fixed. So cool, they had to fix the wall before we would take ownership. All right. So this is your final chance to look at the house and say, yes, this is what I approved you on. All right. If everything's copacetic there, everything's good to go, carry on. You move on to the next step, which is mortgage settlement. So mortgage settlement is the last day. So now you're actually gonna buy a house, okay? So you're gonna meet at the title company probably with your agent, probably their agent, maybe your lender will be there, and you'll go through the process where they're gonna look at your home insurance, they're gonna look at your ID, they're gonna make sure you are you, they're gonna make sure they are they. They're gonna go and you're gonna fill a whole bunch of documents out. You're gonna sign a whole nother tree of paperwork, and it's probably somebody sitting on the other side of you with like one of those orange rubber condoms on their finger, and they're just flipping through pages that have highlights on them. They just say, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. You know what I'm talking about. And they go through this booklet and they sign all these pages, and they're gonna tell you what it is, and you're gonna look over your agent or your lender, and they're gonna nod at you, and then you're just gonna sign it. If you wanna sit there and read all these documents, do that. If you want to have someone read them to you, do that. If you want to read in advance, do that. Don't let somebody rush you in signing paperwork that is literally the largest expense of your life if you're not ready. Okay, so understand what you're selling, or at least be comfortable with people telling you it's okay to sign these things. They should be generally generic. So these are things you can get beforehand. It's just gonna have specifics on there, and they should point all that out to you. All right, so you did all that. The title company says, yeah, this person actually owns the house. They can sell it to you. The agents all agree. You sign all the paperwork. Congratulations, you just bought a house. Now you're a homeowner. So you probably get the keys right then, if not a little bit later that day or the next morning. So now you're a homeowner. So now you have to move in, right? So now you want to get copies of all those documents that you just signed. Make sure you have all copies of that. You should receive a copy of the deed to the home in about a month. It has to go through the county recorder's office. If you have any deposit surpluses, meaning you brought too much money to closing, they may give you a check for like $25 on the way back. So like when I bought our second house, we got a house and a $25. So we kind of won in that deal. Then you want to set up your utilities. So you want to go and make sure power, water, gas, internet, all that stuff is set up in your name, not in the older person's name. You want to change the locks, right? You just bought this house. They have keys. Sure, they gave you the key, but how many keys do they have? So let's change the locks. If you've never changed locks before, you don't have to go out and buy brand new like doorknobs. You can just pull the lock out, take it to Home Depot. They'll repin it, meaning change the actual way the key works, and you can put it back in. So if you like the door fixtures, you can keep them. You just need to remove the lock and change it. If you don't know how to do that, hire a handyman or watch YouTube, and that can help you. It's also a good time to check out the windows, make sure the windows are secure and locked. If you want to put in a home security system, this is the time. If you're going to do any changes to the home, it's great to do it now before you move in, right? So this home I'm standing in, we got all the floors changed the day we bought the house. So I bought the house in the morning. That night, we had people coming in here tearing out the carpet to put new floors in, right? You can schedule things. It's a lot easier to do that when there's not stuff in the house yet. And this is the least time there's ever going to be stuff in here. So it's a good time to do an inventory of all your things, right? So for future insurance claims, they're going to want to know what you had. So this is a good time to inventory it. Check the temperature on your water heater. Find where the main shutoff valve is for the water. Measure things. Get all your window treatments in place, which if you don't know what that means, that just means like blinds and curtains and stuff. Not sure why they're called treatments, but hire help. Right? If you don't like moving, hire someone to move your stuff. Packers and movers are expensive, but very valuable. A handyman to fix any of those things that the homeowner didn't want to fix before, or anything that you noticed after the purchase price. Let's get all those things fixed. Again, easier to do now than it will be in the future. And then I always recommend hiring a cleaning crew. Yes, you could clean your house. It's your house, but somebody else's funk is all in that house. And you're not going to want to clean that, right? It's bad enough when you find like a fingernail on your house, like let alone someone else's toenails behind where the bed frame used to be. So like let somebody else come through and clean that house for you. Money well spent, I promise. It's a good time to do an insurance review. So let's make sure our auto or home warranty, all that stuff is in place, our insurance. Make sure you know like how to get a hold of a locksmith, if you ever lock yourself out or anything like that. Update all your addresses, change your driver's license. If you have kids, plan a fire escape. Let them know where the fire extinguishers are. We just had a client whose kitchen caught on fire. Luckily, they had 2 fire extinguishers and they both knew where they were. So make sure that's planned out so you don't lose a house. And then again, meet the neighbors. If it's in your prerogative to meet the neighbors, now's a great time to do that. Find out when the next neighborhood barbecue is or what neighbor you should avoid. Maybe it's you. Who knows? All right. Any questions about that? No. All right, closing costs. I talked about closing costs earlier. What do those maybe look like? So closing costs are all the expenses that go into buying a home except the actual home. So maybe there's a loan origination fee. Brittany, I mentioned on the VA loan, there was like a loan origination fee in there. This is what that could be. So thousands of dollars we're talking about. There could be a discount, meaning you lowered your interest rate. So you paid some money up front to get a lower interest rate by the lender. That's a possibility. There could be processing fees. The underwriters are going to charge you fees. If you have to transfer money, they'll charge you a fee. If they run your credit report, they charge you a fee. Tax services, they run a fee. If you're in a flood area or if you're not in a flood area, they have to charge you a fee. Title insurance costs money. Escrow, courier, if they have to bring you any paperwork. Appraisal charge money. The county recorder charges money. Your first year's of homeowner's insurance costs money. You have 6 months of tax reserves. So on a $250,000 home, this could cost as much as $8,000. Could cost much less. It's going to be dependent on your area, your situation, your lender, your rules. Okay. So you should know all these numbers beforehand. Your lender should give you estimates of these homes, these purchases way beforehand. And then as you get it, it's going to get fine-tuned and fine-tuned and fine-tuned. So when you finally get to mortgage closing, you're going to know exactly what the dollar figure is. Go ahead.
So this is in addition to your like 250 that you're agreeing to buy the house for.
So like this is what you bought the house for. This
Right.
is what it costs to buy the house. All this other stuff.
Like on top of that, like it's like all extra stuff.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Now, I mentioned earlier when you're putting that offer letter and you're negotiating, sometimes closing costs are part of that negotiation. So you may say, hey, I'll pay you $250,000 for this house, but I want you to pay all the closing costs, right? And a seller may or may not care, right? For you, closing costs mean two things. Either it's going to go into your mortgage, if you can do that, or this is money out of pocket above and beyond your down payment that you have to pay. So that's very expensive for you. For a seller, it's just a decrease in the amount of money that they receive. So sometimes a seller will accept a higher purchase price and include the closing costs. Okay. So let's say they're selling a house for $250 or $240. And I'm like, hey, I know the closing costs are going to be like 10 grand. I'll pay you $245 instead of $240. You pay the closing costs. Sometimes the seller will be like, hell yeah, I sold my house for $245. That's way better. I was expecting $240. And they don't realize the math behind this is going to not work out in their favor. Now, the agent's going to help them decide all this stuff, but that's what matters. Maybe it's, hey, I'll pay 50% of all closing costs. You pay 50%. Maybe it's give me $3,000 seller credit towards those closing costs. You decide what's appropriate with your agent, and they include that in the offer sheet. Does that make sense? All right, good question. Okay, other options, right? So this is just buying a house that already exists. You could build a house, okay? So you can work with a developer, which is one of those new home builds that's happening in your area. So what do? You purchase a lot, you find a lot of land, you walk through a model home, you work through financing, you choose a floor plan, you sign the purchase agreement, you pick all the special features, like I want the gray cabinets, they're 8 feet tall, I want the crown molding, I want the upgraded floor package. You approve the house plans, the home is built, and then you purchase it, all right? Another option is you just go out and buy some raw land, right? If that's something you're into, just buy a big old patch of land. And then what do you gotta do? So determine a budget, decide the area and the zoning requirements that you need, check out sounds and smells around the area, research natural hazards, check for nearby utilities and street access if that's something you're gonna want, hire a land survey, hire a land planner, order an appraisal, obtain financing, hire a general contractor. If you have a general contractor, you wanna do all these things. Anybody gonna buy raw land? No, please feel free to come back and talk to me if you ever do that. I'd be interested. I've never done it. So some recommendations. So wait as long as you can before actually looking at homes. Okay. For us, again, it was a couple steps in that I said, now is the time to look at homes. I think it was step 4. So we want to try to delay that as long as possible. Now Zillow is one thing, but like going and looking at actual homes, if you start looking at homes that are outside your budget, that's going to suck. And it may not be your actual budget. If you're a 3-income household, it may be the budget that the lender's going to approve you for is what we care about. Okay. So we want to make sure we're not outside that range. Complete the home purchase worksheet to figure out what that budget looks like. Start saving and allocating for whatever down payment you assume, right? We recommend like a separate account, like a whole separate account for it. So like if you're at Ally or wherever your bank is, open a new account, title it home purchase. So that way, if you want to go spend some money on something like, hey, I'm going to go buy a Nintendo Switch, I'm probably not going to steal from my home purchase fund to do that, right? Because I want that home more. If you're investing for a longer term purchase, like, hey, I'm not buying this house for a couple of years, then it would be, maybe we'll open an investment account to get there. Short term, it's cash or in a savings account. Longer term, then we can invest it. What's that differentiation in time frame? It's going to be up to you, but generally it's like over 3 to 5 years out. We can invest it 3 years or less. I'm going to say let's keep it in a savings account. At the very best, we keep it like a CD or something if that's something you want to do. Next thing is build a team, right? So earlier I mentioned there's a PharmD that will connect you with other real estate agents. So So this is Nate Hedrick. Nate Hedrick's a pharmacist out in Ohio, and he has a side hustle where he connects people with other agents. So he's a real estate agent as well. If you're in Ohio, he may be able to help you. If you're not in Ohio, he can go and find you an agent. Okay, this is valuable if you're not from your local area, if you're not from home, or if you're moving to a new area that you don't have any knowledge of. Okay, let's say you're doing a residency one place, but your actual job is going to be in another area of the country. He can go out and find you an agent and vet them for you and then pass them along. Okay, so he can know if they're shit hot or not. His process, basically you meet with Nate, you reach out to him and his company, he'll do like a 30-minute jumpstart interview where he'll talk to you. He doesn't charge you anything directly, he charges that agent a portion of their fee, right? So it doesn't cost you anything up front. You could argue it costs you in the long run, but it just costs that agent a little bit of money as a finder's fee. He'll go out and vet them. If he already knows an agent in that area that you're going to, that's great. If not, he'll find one for you. But it's really just a concierge service, okay? So if you have an issue, you can go back to Nate and say, hey, Nate, this person was a total dick. I don't want to work with them anymore. And then he can work it out for you. Questions about that? Nope. Tony Umholtz. So this is Iberia Bank. I also mentioned there's like Farm D loans. Iberia is not the only bank that does this, but they're the one that we generally recommend. Caveat here. If I ever recommend somebody to y'all, we don't get any kickbacks from anybody. So if I recommend you to Nate, he doesn't pay us. Tony from Iberia doesn't pay us. These are just good things that we like to recommend. If a better thing becomes available, I recommend that thing instead. But this is who we recommend right now. So Tony's team over at Iberia Bank, they do a Farm D loan. So what's different about the Farm D loan? So it's a normal conforming loan, but they have more flexibility, right? So if you graduated from pharmacy school, they'll let you do this. So they'll allow you to do as low as 3% down for your first time home purchase, 5% down if it's a secondary or more home, if it's your second purchase or longer. So lower down payment options, different loan to value ratios. They allow financing up to 4-unit properties. So if you're going to do like a house hacking method, you want to buy like a triplex, live in one unit, rent out the other 2, they could allow that loan as well. That would not be for the 3 or 5%. That would be whatever they say. It's probably going to be closer to 15 or 20% down. All right, so it's different. These loans do not include PMI, which is really valuable because I don't want to pay that PMI devil. They have availability for the 30-year fixed year rates. They have purchase and refinance options, and apparently they're offered in the whole lower 48 states. All right. Questions related to home purchase first.
Yeah, I had a question real quick. So how does some of these different processes change when because you were talking before about having something that's an investment home that you're going to flip within a couple of years versus having it as a home that you're going to live in. Does this process change at all when you're specifically looking to buy something to resell it later, or how does that look like?
What time frame? Like how long you live there first?
Let's just say a year or 2.
Yeah. So most loan offers and most loan sheets are going to say, hey, you're buying this as a primary residence for now. So they expect you to live there for at least a year. And it may actually state that specifically, that this is intended to be your primary residence for at least 12 months. The idea is if you're buying a home for your residence, it's for your residence. You're not trying to scam anybody. You're not buying a rental property and I'm going to call it my home. If it's your home and you move later, you move later. If you buy a house, for you, it's for you. Whatever you do with it after that is up to you. They're not expecting everyone who buys a home to stay there for the whole 30 years, right? You're gonna sell it. The average person stays in the house for 5 years. So now that's crazy low to somebody, that's crazy long for somebody else. So we've been in this house for like 19 months or something, and it's starting to get really old to me. Like I'm ready to move again. So, but yeah, 12 months is generally that answer. If you're gonna stay there for less than 12 months, just talk to your lender, be transparent, be honest, let them know, and then they'll lead you to the appropriate place.
And then also too, kind of on the flip side of if you are going to stay in a home longer, what about even like first-time homeowner grants or programs? What do those typically kind of look like?
Dude, I've never talked about these, and I should. So everybody here, if you've never bought a home, even if you have bought a home, there's a term called first-time home buyer. So a first-time home buyer is what it sounds like. This is my first time buying a house. It also means I have not owned a home for at least 3 years. Basically, you get your virginity back. Congratulations. So if you're a first-time home buyer, there are probably programs in your area. So I would Google city, state, county, whatever, first-time homebuyer programs and find what that is. So we have one here in Phoenix specifically that will assist first-time homebuyers who have poor credit. They'll give them free credit counseling. Okay. If they have a hard time savings, they may have grant programs. They may have incentive programs like, hey, here's $5,000 for free toward your down payment. Congratulations for doing my credit assessment program. Also, if you can save $5,000, we'll match it with $10,000. Okay. So I could walk away by saving $5,000. I could walk away with $20,000 through this program. So find out what programs are available in your area. Sometimes it takes for specific lenders. Sometimes it's specific loans. Sometimes it's specific homes in that area, but they're all going to be different. So I can't speak specifically to anybody else's, but I would definitely look those up. Your agent should be able to help you with this. Your lender should be able to help you with this. If they're not and they don't know, maybe you should find somebody else, or maybe you should help educate them so they can help other people in the future, okay? The fact that my first agent didn't tell me that there was a loan program where I could have walked away with $20,000 for $5,000 is sad. Like, that's money that I could have had, okay? I would have qualified for all those grants and I just didn't know about them. So that's upsetting. A lot of times it's gonna be income-based though, like income-driven stuff. So a lot of you are gonna earn too much to qualify for these things. But that's not always the case, especially if you're going to PGY2 and you're going to be on a residency salary for a long time. So yeah, great question. I don't have a specific answer for you there, Chris.
Sorry, I got another question too. I guess, is there a situation too where if you know you're going to be staying around the area, so like for example, Minneapolis area, if you know you're going to stay within the Minneapolis area, is there a reason buying a home would not be a good idea compared to just renting out, for example?
Oh, so just like the rent versus buy question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of this is going to be individually driven, right? So mathematically, if you're going to be in an area for a long time, it makes more sense to buy a home because you can build up a bunch of other stuff. You can build up equity, you can save on taxes, you can do a lot of things. What renting gives you is flexibility. Okay. If you want to move right now and you're in a home, that's going to suck. You either need to learn to rent it, you need to find an agent to rent it for you, or you got to sell it right away. If you're on a lease right now and you're renting, you can just break your lease and pay whatever it costs and you can bounce out, right? There's nothing tying you down. Also, if a housing market area shifts, it is quite arguable that we are at a very high point in the real estate market right now. If the housing market shifts like it did back in 2008, 2009 from the Great Recession, that brings your house value down. So if you were renting at that time, you wouldn't have had that drop because you're just renting. You would actually be in a better position to then buy. But we don't know where we're at in the cycle. I can stand here all day and say that we're at the top end of the market, and then this market could run for 10 more years. So anybody who says otherwise is just guessing and speculating on what it's going to be. So I generally make that rent versus buy decision as, how does this purchase impact your other goals, right? Hey, I want to buy, this is my top prime goal. I will pay my student loans longer. Hey, I want to buy, this is my top prime goal. I will put off X, Y, and Z other goals, if that's your thing. If you know you're going to be, if your whole family is from one area and your significant other lives in that area and like nobody ever moves, cool, buy a home. Like there's nothing to slow you down. But we have clients that come to us and say, hey, yeah, I'm going to move in like 2 or 3 years, but I'm going to buy a house now because I know it's good math. Well, yeah, that math can get broken though. Like any number of things can happen to that home, right? If you're renting an apartment and it burns down, that sucks. But like, it's not your house that burned down. Like you get a new apartment. If the neighbor next to you decides to become a total asshole and brings down the property value of your home, that sucks. Things outside your control can impact you. So if it's really short term, you know you're going to be leaving, I generally say keep renting. It gives you the flexibility to go other places. If you know you're going to be there long term, or you know you're going to be there for a set period of time, then you can look at buying. You just want to make sure you say that to your lender. Not so much from if they're a good lender and you can actually communicate, it's not just like a big team at like Quicken Loans or something. You can tell them, hey, we're probably going to be here for like 3 or 5 years. I got to invest in my retirement account at work, and then I'm probably going to move again. They can tell you what the break even is going to be. Like they can do math, because remember, it's not just your mortgage payment. You also have the down payment you got to include. You also have all these closing costs you got to include. You may have PMI you got to include, and you can figure out that maybe that purchase of a home is actually getting pretty close to what I was paying for rent anyway. It's not always a good deal mathematically. and all the other expenses that come on top of it. But I didn't really
I guess-
answer your question, but
Well, and I guess too, even for like in a break, even like you do all the math and everything, and it ends up being, 15 a month for rent, 15 a month for a mortgage. Between the two, does a mortgage make more sense if you are going to stay in the area typically?
it can if the home is going to appreciate. So when you pay a mortgage, you get equity in the home, meaning your value of the home ownership portion goes up. So that when you sell in the future, you can sell that. If you do all the math, we got to include everything. We got to include taxes. We got to include insurance. We got to include all that snow removal stuff we weren't paying before. We got to include all these fees. But yeah, if it's exactly the same, then it doesn't really matter, right? For me personally, if home ownership was the exact same cost as renting, I would rent, because then when the AC goes out, somebody else can pay for that. Then when the yard needs cut, I can charge somebody else for that. When I want to pick up and move to another area of town because a new Chick-fil-A opened closer to me over there, then I'll move over there, right? I'm hungry. If you're moving to a new area, this is another big one I forgot to mention. If you're moving to a new area, let's say I'm going to move to Dallas, Texas, from Phoenix, Arizona to Dallas, Texas. I've never lived in Dallas. I don't know about Dallas. I would not buy when I first moved to Dallas. Because what the fuck do I know about Dallas? Like, I'm going to pick the wrong area. Like, let me move there, pay rent for a year, lose money if it, same, lose money in the exchange, but get a much better education of the area and the environment and know I'm in the right place. So you may think you know an area until you live in it. So that's a big one. Does that make sense, Chris? I'm giving you a lot of sideways answers.
More or less. And I mean, too, it's really an objective question more than anything, a subjective, but one last question officially. Where would you recommend that are good resources as far as speculating potential markets, whether they're going to go up, down, stay the same, even local markets? Where would you recommend kind of looking at some of that stuff, talking with a realtor?
Don't speculate. That's the safest answer, man. So like national average is that prices are going to appreciate about 2% a year. So that's just inflation, just general inflation. Anything beyond inflation is pure speculation. I mean, you're kind of guessing. Historical averages do not necessarily prove out in the future. If I look at San Francisco, California, they've had 17% appreciation per year on average over the last 2 decades. I can't look at that and guarantee that that's going to happen again. So I don't want to base decisions off that speculation. I want to account appreciation as gravy, right? So I'll take that 2%, I'll take that average everyday stuff, but the math has to work right now. It can't just work in the future, because if I want to sell in the future and there's a dip in the market at that time, then what am I going to do, right? Somebody was building off that appreciation and they were building off that speculation and they were really planning to sell their house in 2010 and that didn't go well. So either they didn't sell it and they had to keep it and now they're still living there, or they had to rent it out as an investment property they didn't plan for, or this, that, and the other. So I try not to focus too much on that. And again, I want to separate out if a property is for investments or if a property is for living in, right? You're living in the thing, let's focus on that value of it. Long-term, I think it's right to have these questions, but you cannot those variables get real tricky and no one's going to be dead on. So if you're looking for a source of who to talk to, you got to vet that source too, because an agent's going to tell you to buy a bigger house because it's going to appreciate over time. This area has been flying up the market. They just opened a Whole Foods. Brittany's moving in. So who knows what that's valuable, whether that's accurate. I've never seen an agent tell me to avoid an area because it's going to depreciate over the next 5 years. That's just not something they're going to say openly at the very least. So I don't have a good place for that. Generally speaking, where's a good place to get resources? Just trusted sources, right? I like Bankrate. I like NerdWallet. I like big powerhouse players. I don't like anybody who's incentivized to sell me something, generally speaking. But you can look at federal data on appreciation values on a county by county basis online. But that's just historical data. It does not tell me what's going to happen tomorrow. If interest rates shoot through the roof, if the Fed comes out in their next briefing, they just had one, so it's going to be a little while. If the Fed comes out in their next briefing, the Federal Reserve, by the way, they kind of set interest rates. If the Federal Reserve comes out and says some crazy shit in the next thing, and housing interest rates shoot from 2.6% to back to 4%, where they probably have been for the last couple of years, the housing buyer market is going to dry up, which is going to decrease demand, Supply is not going to change, which is going to decrease price, which means all that appreciation stuff that we thought about is out the window. So again, just another sideways answer, man. I try not to say it depends. I know Tim does that. I try to use that term as least as possible, but it depends. All right. Anybody else got a question for me? We can go related. We can do unrelated to home purchase.
I have one. I never really thought about like building your own house and like contacting contractors and things like that.
Mhm.
Financially speaking, what do those numbers tend to look like? Like if my budget or like the amount I'm willing to spend on a home is 400, like can I take that 400 and build a house I actually want? Like I feel like $400,000 is not a good amount of money to build a home from scratch.
You'd be surprised. So if you think about it from this way, right? If the value of building a home was like crazy high, then no one would ever do it, right? If the value of building a home was super cheap, everyone would do it, right? So there's a balance there, right? So the fact that they build new homes in your area probably can state that this is doable. So I would say it's generally comparable, especially if you can get away from stuff. So if you're willing to be farther away, land is cheaper. If you're willing to work with different contractors, it's cheaper. But when you buy a home under a contract, you know exactly what it costs. When you are building a home, there are variables that are yet to be known. So that person may quote you and say, hey, we can build this home for X dollar, but that's gonna change because they're gonna learn new things. It's gonna get rained on. There's gonna be a tornado that comes through for the first time in history. Like shit just happens. COVID, I don't know, anything like that could just pop up and now they're delayed. So I would say if this is an interest to you, reach out to some professionals in the area. Find an agent, talk to an agent, whether they're your agent or not, just talk to them and then tell them you're thinking about doing this because you're still gonna need somebody to buy the land from. So you gotta find an agent to help you buy the land and they should know somebody, or at the very least, they should know somebody who knows somebody who's a contractor who can help you do this. For a raw land purchase, for a development purchase, like there's a new neighborhood popping up, the development homes should be extremely close to the value of pre-lived homes, pre-loved, whatever the term we want to use, existing homes. Because if they were too expensive, no one would buy them. They would just buy existing homes. So they have to be extremely well priced. Now that's gonna, again, use an agent for that. You don't have to use an agent when you buy a new build home, but you can use an agent and it costs you no money. So do that. I'm currently looking at a new home that I want to have built, and I'm going to use an agent throughout that process. Those homes are going to be completely comparable and they're going to be brand new, but the builder quality is important. So you got to understand what that builder quality looks like and compares and what's the property value in that area and yada, yada, yada. Short answer, talk to professionals in your area who have better data, and they should walk you through this. But if you build a home like out in the sticks or something, talk to me. Let me know how that works out. I'd be interested. I haven't had anybody do that just yet. We've had new builds, we've had a bunch of stuff, but I haven't had like raw land yet. Anybody else got a question? Nope. Okay, so next meeting again, 14 days from now. So September 28th, we're going to talk about taxes. In that meeting, come prepared with questions about your taxes. I'll tell you basically just how taxes work, why we pay taxes, how they work, what we should expect in the future, what the rates are, just an understanding of the tax load. After that, I think we're going to do insurance unless someone changes our mind. So that's kind of where we're going. And that's all I got for you. So everybody have a good night. Enjoy the rest of the time. If you're on the West Coast, stay safe with the fires. If you're on the East Coast, I don't know anything about the East Coast right now. So all I hear is West Coast. So
We had an earthquake like a month ago
where?
in North Carolina.
What?
Yeah, it was like 5.3. I could feel it.
Was there an explosion? I don't even think there's a fault line over there.
Yeah, right? That's what I thought. I didn't even know what it was. And I was like, I did not sign up for this.
Did you feel it?
Yeah, I could. I thought somebody like really big was like walking up my apartment stairs. So it was just very slight, but
That's crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Well, stay safe from earthquakes, apparently.
I think we're good now.
There was a hurricane
you.
in Iowa too.
Yeah.
There's a hurricane where?
Iowa.
Did you say Iowa?
Iowa. Yeah.
What? Hold on. Where is Iowa? Iowa's
Yeah, like the derecho.
Yeah.
It's landlocked. Don't worry.
yeah, that's what I'm picturing. How does land hurricane? CNN.com, August 21st. What?
Yeah, it's wild.
Never heard of such a thing. Okay, well, stay safe from hurricanes in Iowa now. That's a movie. All right, y'all have a nice night.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks for everything. Appreciate it.